Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're digging into something really foundational. We're looking at the origins of one of the most famous texts in English, the King James Version of the Bible. It's quite a story.
It really is. And for this deep dive, we've got the Bible itself, of course, but also, crucially, the original preface written by the translators back then. It gives you this amazing window into, well, what they were trying to achieve for the Church of England starting around 1604.
Yeah, that preface is key. So our mission for you today is to sort of unpack why they did this huge translation job, what challenges did they run into, and how did it end up becoming the standard for English-speaking Protestants? They even included the Apocrypha, which was definitely a point of discussion even back then.
Absolutely. That inclusion itself tells you something about the context of the time.
Okay, so let's dive right in. The motivation. Who was really behind this? Was it like a groundswell thing or more top-down?
Well, the translator's own dedication page is pretty clear on that. They state King James himself was the, quote, principal mover and author of the work.
The king himself, wow.
Yeah, they mention his vehement and perpetuated desire for a new, more accurate translation.
Okay, so royal command. But what was the deeper argument for translating it at all? Why put it in English?
That's where it gets really interesting, philosophically almost. They believed translation was absolutely vital. They used this powerful line, except I know the power of the voice, I shall be to him that speaketh a barbarian.
A barbarian, meaning like completely shut out if you don't share the language.
Exactly. Total lack of understanding. Without translations into the common or vulgar tongue, as they called it, the ordinary person, the unlearned, are, quote, like children at Jacob's well, which is deep, without a bucket.
Wow, what an image. Jacob's well without a bucket.
Right. You can't get to the water, the knowledge. They saw the scriptures in the original languages as a kind of sealed book for most people.
So translation was the key, the bucket, to unlock that sealed book. That makes sense.
And they were keen to point out this wasn't some newfangled idea.
Right. They said it wasn't a quaint conceit lately taken up.
Precisely. Not just some odd modern whim. They pointed to history.
Like the Septuagint.
Yes, the ancient Greek translation of the Old Testament, hugely important for early Christianity, and also St. Jerome's Latin Vulgate.
Which was the standard in the West for, what, 1,000 years?
Over 1,000, yeah. But they didn't stop there. The preface lists translations into, well, a whole load of languages. Syrian, Egyptian, Indian, Gothic, Arabic, Saxon, even earlier English and French versions.
So they were basically saying, look, everyone's been doing this forever. It's essential.
It showed this long global tradition of making sacred texts accessible in the mother tongue.
Okay, but here's where it must have gotten tricky. They knew they'd face pushback, right? Trying to improve on existing English Bibles.
Oh, absolutely. They were very aware of that. They directly addressed the critics. They acknowledged people asking, essentially, hey, wasn't the old translation good enough? Why are you mending it now?
That's a fair question, I guess. How did they tackle that?
Their answer is quite insightful, actually. It speaks volumes about how they saw progress. They clarified their goal wasn't, to fix something terrible. It wasn't about turning a bad translation into a good one.
Okay. So what was the goal then?
It was, in their words, to make a good one better, or, out of many good ones, one principal good one, not justly to be accepted against.
So refining, perfecting, taking good work and making it, well, the best possible version.
Exactly, building on what came before. And they do mention the king's decision was partly a response to importunate petitions of the Puritans who were asking for a new translation.
So there was some pressure from groups like the Puritans, too. Interesting.
Yes, it wasn't solely the king's idea in a vacuum, but the translators really stood by their work.
How so?
They argued pretty boldly that even the meanest translation, the simplest or perhaps least polished version of the Bible, it's still the Word of God.
How did they justify that?
They used an analogy. Think of a king's speech. Does it stop being the king's speech just because it's translated into different languages?
No, the core message remains.
Okay, I see their point. The essence is preserved.
Right, and they stressed their method wasn't slapdash. They went back to the sources, directly to the original Hebrew for the Old Testament and Greek for the New Testament.
The golden pipes, or fountains as they called them.
Those were their terms, yeah.
Yeah.
Not translating from Latin or another translation, but from the originals. They saw that as crucial for accuracy.
And they emphasized the time it took, didn't they?
They did.
Yeah.
They pointed out it wasn't huddled up in 72 days, like the legendary Septuagint translation. No, this project have cost the workmen Twice, 7 times 72 days and more.
So years of painstaking work.
Absolutely. Years of careful deliberation and scholarship.
Okay, so we have the royal backing, the deep belief in translation, this goal of making good better, and a meticulous process. But why did this specific version become the defining English Bible for centuries? Was it just the accuracy?
Accuracy was huge, yes, but probably not the only factor. Its literary quality is undeniable. The language is, well, majestic,
Mm,
poetic. It just resonated with people. The sound of it, the rhythm.
exactly. It deeply influenced English literature, how people spoke. It became part of the cultural fabric.
And the king's backing didn't hurt, I imagine?
Definitely not. Royal commissioning gave it immense authority. It was promoted in churches, became the standard, and sort of pushed older versions aside over time. It literally helped shape the modern English language.
Incredible. So, wrapping this up, what's the big takeaway for you, our listeners?
Well, this deep dive, I think, shows more than just how one book came to be. It highlights this persistent human drive, this desire to take really profound, important ideas and make them accessible to everyone.
Yeah, breaking down barriers to knowledge. And they did it despite facing serious criticism and the sheer difficulty of the task.
Mm.
Tuning good into better isn't easy.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? Which leads to a final question for you. In our world today, which is just flooded with information, right? What important knowledge might still be locked away? What's our modern day sealed book or unknown tongue? What are we still trying to, unseal and translate so more people can understand?
Something to definitely chew on.